Welcome to SouthCoast Matters. I'm Paul Attendra.
And I'm Julie Taylor. And SouthCoast Matters is a public access television program, where we bring together civic leaders, business leaders, and citizens to discuss how we can work in harmony to have a positive impact on our South Coast communities. And we thought we'd tell you where we come from in this discussion. And Paul has a business and corporate world background, and I have a background in public service and policymaking.
And we try to have an interesting conversation with an interesting guest. We try to learn a few things in the meantime while we're doing it. Today's interesting guest is Gina DeRossi, the Register of Probate Court in Bristol County.
So Gina resides in Dartmouth and is a New Bedford native. She graduated from New Bedford High School, did her college work at Providence College, and you got your law degree from New England School of Law in Boston. So you were first elected in 2008 and successfully ran for re-election in 2014.
I did.
Great.
And Gina, the big question, what the hell is a Register of Deeds, a Register of Probate Court?
Well, you know, you saying Register of Deeds is sort of the first answer that I have to give every time somebody asks me what I do, because the presumption is that I am the Register of Deeds, which I'm not. The Register of Probate is essentially the keeper of the records for the probate and family court. I am the manager of the probate and family court, so it's my job to deal with all of the fiscal, the human resources, the personnel, and basically all of the paper that comes in the probate and family court. So every single thing that is filed with the court, if it's a family law matter or an estate matter, that comes through my office, and my staff are the ones that review it, they process it. We schedule all the judges' calendars, and so we're basically the brain center of the probate and family court. We do ultimately everything except for decide the cases.
Wow. So in general, you're like a gigantic filing cabinet, though.
Yeah, we basically are, except for the fact that we have to review everything and make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing by way of filing, particularly in a time where there are no lawyers. At least we see fewer and fewer lawyers in our court as the years pass.
Wow. Now, why would that be?
I think that part of the reason for it is just the cost. There are more people who are utilizing our court. Our filings have gone up considerably over the course of the last several decades. We were a court that maybe was doing 5,000 filings in a year, and now we're upwards of 15,000 filings in a year.
Ben, could we bring up that slide? We'll bring up a slide, show some numbers. Do you have to be an attorney?
You don't have to be an attorney, and in actuality, the probate and family court does not give you any constitutional right for legal counsel. There are very limited instances where you can have an attorney assigned to you. Generally, children who are part of a case for a particular reason, like a guardianship, might have an attorney that's appointed for them. But if you're filing a divorce or if you're filing an estate, you're not going to have the right to legal counsel. So we see almost upwards of 85% of our filings are actually what we call pro se, which means that people are doing it on their own, unrepresented by an attorney.
Does the Register of Probate have to be an attorney?
No, the Register does not have to be an attorney.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, you know, it's probably 50-50 around the state registers that are and registers that are not attorneys. Okay. I just think that one of the benefits of being an attorney, particularly for myself, who practiced probate and family law for 13 years prior to being elected, you know, you need to have that background knowledge to understand how to improve and operate through the system. It would be very difficult to do if you didn't really have an understanding of what each case is about. And even being able to represent clients, you kind of understand what they went through when you actually represented them on the other side of the system. So I think you have a little bit more compassion, you know, for what they're going through. Because now that I'm on this side, I sort of see it, and you know, they don't really understand, you know, that it's about efficiency and moving things along. They really want their hands held.
Yeah.
Let's look at the numbers. Could we? I'm sorry, Ben. Could we bring that up again? I'm not sure if we can read that.
So in 2015, this was for the fiscal year 2015, our statistics in Bristol County were total filings of over 13,000 total filings, which actually was down 2% from the prior year. And that pretty much was universal in all of the counties. You know, one of the things that people don't understand is there are essentially two types of matters that are filed in the probate and family court. One is we call probate, and that's pretty much estates. That's what people know, you know, when you try to probate an estate. But that also includes changes of name, which you have to do in the probate and family court, and guardianships. Guardianships of minors, and then guardianships of incapacitated and elderly people. So that comprises only 33% of our business. But the domestic work, which is adoptions, divorces, support, paternities, and protections from abuse, what we call 209As, that represents over 66% of the work that we do. And that's the work that we see very, very few lawyers in our court now. So we have pro se litigants that are coming in you know, every day that are looking for guidance. I mean, most people don't wake up one day and know how to file a divorce, what needs to be done. So it's my job and the job of my staff to really walk them through what can be a very complicated and emotional process. I think the biggest statistic for this year that was so striking to my office was of all of the counties around the state, we were #1 out of the 14 counties in 209A's abuse prevention orders. And, you know, we have some ideas as to why that is, but I think it speaks to a lot of the problems that we see here on the South Coast. I think the opioid epidemic is one of those.
Back up now. 209A is
A restraining order, what most commonly people know as a restraining order. And most of the ones that are filed with the probate and family court are done so because there's a pending case in the probate and family court or parties live together. It has to presume some sort of connection between the parties. They have to be related in some way or be in some sort of domestic relationship.
Is it normally husband, wife, spousal? Or
Yep, that's generally what we see.
Okay. Do you get many with restraining orders, stay away from the children type?
We do.
Order?
That often is included if a mom comes in to have a restraining order against the dad of the kids, then she can have a restraining order put against him for herself as well as for the children. So you do see those, and that is an option for people. And they do exercise it. And generally what happens is they're done without notice, and it's, 7-10 days, there's a turnaround, and then the party has to be notified and they come back in. And some of them are extended, sometimes a year, sometimes permanent. But we do see a lot of them in Bristol County, and I do think that it's something that needs to be looked at because it's a demographic issue. The issues are societal in nature, and there's a fear. Some people might say that judges issue 209As a lot easier than they should. But I think that there's a big burden that are put on judges to have to make these determinations. And you see in the news, just recently we've seen, stories in the news about spouses who, have executed their spouse and their children or in front of their children. So, those judges are going home and watching the same news that we're watching. So I understand it's a very, very difficult decision that they're making when they're hearing the facts of some of these cases.
Is there personnel in the probate court that can kind of counsel these people, or how would they? They
actually do have advocates. We just recently got one in the last 2 years. They were mostly in district court, but they have advocates that are there to essentially speak to the individuals, take all of the information, assist them in drafting all of their affidavits and the documents. And they can't represent them per se, but they will go up into the courtroom and they're there for support to try to help facilitate the process and, for lack of a better word, hold their hand through it and counsel them as to what to expect next and what their next steps should be.
How are the advocates trained? Do they have any legal background?
They don't have legal background per se, and they're not actually trial court employees. Every court and county have different organizations that provide the service, but they are very well trained, and many of them come from other courts that worked in a victim witness background. So they're able to provide the kind of support and information that is needed. And quite frankly, even those that work for me, the ones that are at the front counter who are listening to these stories, they are trained. There's ongoing training happening for them all of the time. There are recent changes in the domestic violence laws in Massachusetts, so we're going to be getting there's mandatory training that every employee of the trial court has to go through, and that's going to be happening imminently, actually, because this clearly has been identified as one of the growing concerns of Massachusetts.
Has this been going up incrementally, or have you seen like a really big increase in this kind of problem?
I think it's been going up incrementally, but I think over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, the jump has been much larger than it had in prior years. And I do think that, you know, the expansion of drugs and the problems that are going on in a lot of our schools with the, the failure to graduate rates that are going up, I think it's all connected. And I think that, it just shows you that sometimes you have to fix the problems before you get to court and not after you get to court. And that's just an example of it. We're not hitting some of these issues early enough to really make a difference. And we're going to continue to see these numbers go up if we don't do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the opium epidemic has something to do with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing it not just with the restraining orders, we're seeing it with the guardianships. One of the things that has also been going up at a pretty steady rate, and we're at the top of our state, and is the number of guardianship petitions, and these are guardianships of minors. And so these are very often grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends of families who are having to take custody of children because their parents are either unable to do so because they're addicts, or they're going into some sort of rehab facility to try to treat their addictions. And sometimes these are short term, but quite frankly, sometimes these are very long term. And in many cases, we see for years and years and years, these other family members who are raising children. I mean, there are actually organizations that are grandparents raising grandchildren, and I think those are growing, particularly in our area, because we're seeing so much of it, and the increase in these guardianships of minors is really going up steadily.
And the financial stress of having to take on these kids where, grandparents' situation where they're on, fixed incomes and they've thought those days of raising children were over, that's got to be pretty stressful.
It's stressful, and there aren't a lot of resources for them either. And I think that that's one of the problems. And it sort of goes back to, we get them to court and we get them what they need, but then, what's being provided to them thereafter. So we're still struggling with the same problems because we're not figuring out better solutions to sort of hit it, where it needs to be hit at the beginning, so that these are short-term solutions and not long-term solutions,
Yeah, we're putting Band-Aids on.
Exactly.
Is there any effort by your fellow registers to approach this problem collectively with other organizations that can help, whether it's Human Health and Human Services? Or?
There have been, and there have been multiple attempts. I know with respect to the opioid crisis, we're all extremely involved in a lot of the task forces around the state, because I think we're identifying that the problem is definitely being seen in the hallways of our courthouses on a regular basis. So we need to sort of be right there in the trenches, trying to develop ways to at least combat some of the problems associated with that. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with government and state agencies, the wheel turns very, very slowly. And it's the biggest frustration that I've had coming from private practice into, a branch of government, where, there's an expectation that if there's a need and if there's a want to receive help, then it shouldn't be that simple, and it just isn't that simple. And so it's not that there are not great ideas. I mean, they've developed now with the trial court. We have drug courts now that we didn't have before. They're opening a veterans court that they didn't have before. So they really are making attempts to provide some of these social services that hopefully will help, but we probably won't see the benefits of those, at least not enough to impact the numbers for a couple of years. So the jury will still be out on that, so to speak.
Do you think we're slow because of a lack of resources, financial resources, or trained humans?
I think that resources is always going to be an issue, and the judicial branch has always sort of been the third branch of government that gets the least amount of attention and finances some of the time. So we have to advocate very hard, to get our budget, and it's hard to justify the budget. One of the reasons why I think the trial court is trying to make a commitment to digitization is because, I think it's 80% of the trial court's budget is personnel, and we haven't increased our numbers, because through attrition, we're sort of, we've got the baby boomers that are mostly retiring now, and so we're not growing by leaps and bounds. And they're hoping that maybe we can kind of minimize to some extent the actual system and try to lean on some of those other resources that are one-time payments as opposed to the pensions, the health insurance, and the like. Because ultimately, 6 years ago, we were in a hiring freeze. Every single court that you went in was understaffed. They were closing. They were closing courts. They were reducing hours. We weren't providing a service that, quite frankly, is our constitutional obligation to provide. But we're in a much better place now.
Good.
Now, your fees that are collected for filings, those totally support your budget, or does the Commonwealth and ultimately the taxpayers have to contribute more?
Everything is centralized now. So where it used to be that every division and department had a budget, that's no longer the case. So everything is trickled down from Boston. So, if we want to order a box of pencils, we've got to actually put in a requisition for that. And I think that they keep the leash pretty tight to make sure that people are not abusing the budget. But the reality is that, it's the powers that be that get to determine what areas get what. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'd like to think that I have a reputation up in Boston for being extremely vocal and a good advocate for Bristol County. And part of the reason is because historically Bristol County was overlooked. And, I've been a very vocal proponent of it's time that things, happen outside of Boston. And, there are people and there are needs down here, quite frankly, more so than in other parts of the state. And it's about time that Boston start paying attention to what's going on in the 50-mile radius outside of Boston.
So from your area of expertise, what is the biggest problem? Is it the 209A with the domestic violence in families, or what is the greatest need that we have that Boston has ignored?
I think the greatest need has been on resources, and I would say for the most part it's on technology. They're trying to come around, but they want you to do more with less, and they don't want to provide you with any of the better equipment. No one's even asking for the best equipment. We just want working computers and printers and scanners. Right now, we are docketing and scanning everything that comes into our court, and we're doing it because we believe that it's important for the public to have access to all of this, and the sooner we do it, the better off we are. The problem with that is that if you don't have working scanners, and if you can't get a computer to work properly, then it's going to delay being efficient and getting all of that information up onto the docket so that the public has access to their cases. So I think that's the biggest frustration. I think that if you actually did a tour of a lot of the courthouses, you'll see that, squeaky wheels get the grease. We're just now starting to get to the point where regions are getting what they need, but it comes at great verbal exchange to get it. It's not as simple as filling out a rec form,
I have heard that you are a squeaky wheel. So.
I am.
I've also heard some of your people have complimented your executive ability, so I do want to mention that. I'm always impressed with an efficient executive whose people like to work for them, and your people like to work for them. They're proud to work for you, and I find that impressive.
Well, I have an impressive staff. When I came in, and it was at a time where there hadn't been a lot of change. My predecessor had been there for 30 years. And so, it was a group of individuals who had worked together for many, many years doing it in a particular way. And then I sort of came in and, I had to put my time in and get them to trust me and to buy in to the fact that there might be a better way of doing things. And, I ran on the platform that, we really needed to bring it up to date and become more efficient. And I believe that we've done that. And what I think my staff has fortunately bought into is that their lives are better, because the more efficient we are and the better service we provide, the more job satisfaction that they have. Because, our constituents, the people that we serve every day, they need to be helped. They want to be helped. And that's what the taxpayers pay us to do. We are a service industry. And I try to remind my staff of that every day. That's our job. Our job is to listen to their problems. It is to hold their hand and to help them fill out a form. That's the purpose why we're all there. And I think sometimes that's lost on that state worker mentality. And I always tell everybody, you know, I don't run my office like it's a state agency. I run my office the way that I would run it if it were in, you know, in private industry. And I think that that's important because I think it's better for the staff to do that. I think they do have more pride in the work that they do and have job satisfaction that I don't necessarily think they do in every facet of the state, depending on where they're working.
Right.
It's good to hear that. It's I've always said it's about trust and respect.
Absolutely.
And being proud of the job you're doing, and doing the best job you're capable of doing.
Absolutely. We should all want to do that.
Yeah.
So you've made this really great website that's got a lot of information on it, and I know you're proud of your website.
I'm very proud of my website.
So maybe you can kind of walk us through a little bit of what we could find on the website that would help.
Sure.
Let's say we wanted to file a will or something. And
Let's
couldn't afford an
mention
attorney.
who finances.
Yeah.
Does the taxpayer finance?
No. So there is a trial court website, if you can figure out how to find it, that you might stumble upon. It's not very user friendly, and I'm sure that Boston won't appreciate me saying that, but it's the truth, and it's nothing I haven't told them directly. They could probably take a look at ours and learn a few things. I actually promised when I ran that I was going to develop a comprehensive and interactive website. And for the first 6 months, I essentially worked on it night and day. I fund it exclusively with private funds and campaign funds. It is not subsidized in any way by the state, by taxpayers, by the trial court. It's not part of any budget. And it was developed by me and a couple of my staff members who assisted me during that 6-month period, and we update it continuously. And it really is utilized. I mean, we have a database of lawyers around the state and in Rhode Island and New Hampshire that use it, of over 700 lawyers that receive regular newsletters and updates from my website about changes in the law so that they can be kept up to date of things happening. It allows for pro se litigants to contact us via email so that they don't have to try and call. The phone system is terrible, even though we have a relatively new building. So it provides a level of access to the public that never existed before. It essentially walks you through any kind of case that you have. So there's no reason that a person who couldn't afford an attorney or wasn't comfortable hiring an attorney for whatever reason couldn't figure out what they wanted to file, figure out what form. We tell you what forms you need. We tell you how much the filing fees are, where to send it. I mean, we literally walk you through it from beginning to end. And I'm proud of it because I know people use it. I mean, we have the statistics to know that people are using it, and it is helpful to them. And I think that that's important because, again, it goes back to we're there to provide a service. We listen. It gives us an opportunity to listen to some of the criticisms that people have of the process, and we are able to make policy changes based on some of the feedback. We don't live in an ivory tower over there in our courthouse on Broadway in Taunton. We work very efficiently. I mean, we have 3 locations, as a matter of fact. So we have a court and registry in Fall River, as well as one in New Bedford. So, everybody is working very diligently, and everybody is aware of the website. We get calls on a daily basis, and my staff will walk you through it, even if you can't do it. If you can be in front of a computer, they'll literally walk you through A to Z, get you all the forms you need. They're all PDF fillable. You literally could have everything done in much shorter time than if you actually had to walk to the courthouse, wait in line, and have somebody do it for you.
What website? Where would they find your website?
It's bristolcountyprobate.com. So very
That's easy.
simple. Yeah. And our email is on there, but it's info@bristolcountyprobate.com. And we found that lawyers like the ability to email, litigants love the ability to email. Nobody likes the phone anymore.
Well, you never have to feel like you're inconveniencing someone when you're, sending an email. They get back to you as long as they get back to you. But it's not like you're on hold forever. It's just much easier.
And we have a system in place where there are enough of us that are getting the emails. I mean, I get them on weekends. I reply to them when I get them. So we literally are responding to every email within 24 hours. But usually if you're sending it during the day, you're getting an answer by the end of the day.
That's great.
Now, you oversee those 3 offices.
I do.
Do you get to the other? You spend most of your time in Taunton?
Most of my time is in Taunton because most of our staff is in Taunton, as well as all of the files. So most of the business happens in Taunton. We call the other 2 locations satellite locations, but Fall River is actually a full-service registry. So you could actually do everything that you can do in Taunton, you can do in Fall River. The only difference is you can't look through a file because the physical files are not there. And New Bedford is just a satellite session, which means that you can file emergencies there, but we don't have a bookkeeper and a cashier there, which means that you can't file anything that would require a filing fee there. So we answer questions, we provide forms, sort of have an information desk there, but you're limited in what you can do in the New Bedford office.
Now, how many staff do you have in each of those?
We have 3 staff members in New Bedford and then 5 staff members in Fall River.
Can you file your fees like with a debit credit card, or do you actually have to write a check?
You have to write a check, but as part of the trial court strategic plan 2.0 that will run over the course of the next 3 years, they are going to make that, and there are pilots running about paying online, using PayPal.
That's good.
So you can use by credit card, but you have to use credit card at the registry. You can't use a credit card over the phone or send it in any other way. So we're getting there. Again, we're getting there. It's just the wheels turn so slowly.
That's
and
great.
it costs money, and you got to find the money.
You do have to find the money, but it's all about access. You know, if you talk to anybody, in the court system, they're going to tell you what's the priority, and the priority is access. You know, people deserve a right to feel like it's not inconvenient to have access to their court system or access to justice. So it's our responsibility to be creative, to find ways to utilize whatever resources we have. I don't think it's acceptable to say, well, we just don't have the manpower and we don't have the resources. When I was faced with a hiring freeze, we found a way to do more with less, and you just become more efficient. You got to change your policies, you got to figure out a new way of doing things, and change is hard for people that work for the state.
Change is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess it is. So you know, it took a while. But ultimately now my staff is so used to changing that they're sort of waiting, like, okay, what's coming down the pipeline?
But it seems like you involve them in the change
Always.
process, and that makes change
Always.
easier.
Well, they know best. They're the ones that are really on the front line. So I would be remiss if I did not get their input. And again, I have an outstanding staff. There's a lot of institutional knowledge. I mean, I have staff members that have been involved with the trial court for over 30 years.
Wow.
I have a staff member that's never called in sick once, and she's been there for 35 years. So
That's awesome.
it happens.
God bless her.
God bless her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, does she get sick pay? Is that?
Yeah,
piling up
they
for-
do. That's part of, I guess, their,
So when she retires, she'll
She'll get a
like
nice
7
check.
years.
Yeah,
Good
she'll
for
get a
her.
nice check.
She's earned
Yeah,
it.
she
God
deserves
bless
it.
her.
Absolutely.
God bless. We're running out of time. Anything you want to bring up before we end this session?
Just that, you know, I hope that people, take the time to visit the website and understand that, we are here at the Probate and Family Court to help in any way that we can. So they should feel like they can reach out if they have a question or if they have some concerns. And I hope that they feel comfortable doing that.
Give us that website one more time.
BristolCountyProbate.com.
BristolCountyProbate.com. Do
Well,
we
I
know how to
think-
spell probate?
Oh, I hope so. That's
Okay.
pretty easy. It's like rebate, but probate.
My
But-
name's Paul Attender. Thanks for coming.
And I'm Julie Taylor, and this has been a fascinating discussion about a part of the court system I didn't really know that much about, so it's been really
Thank
great.
you.
And we'd like to especially thank Gina DeRossi, our guest today.
My pleasure.
And we hope to get you back. It's fun talking to you.
I would love to.
And you talk so fast that I have trouble thinking that fast. And special thanks to Kim Murphy, Ben Fortier, and Walter Sabina at TCAM Studios. And good night. Thank you.